today's presentation, video conference notarizations. So feel free to take notes as we go through these slides. The effective date of this proclamation was Friday, April the 3rd. And again, I want to acknowledge Sheila Imfinger. She was on Friday's webinar. She is the one that brought this to our attention in the Notaries for Alabama Hangout group on Facebook. Um, that was one of the reasons why I started the Facebook group, to be a forum for Alabama notaries to share information quickly. Um, Trust me, there are a lot of notaries around the state today who aren't even aware about this proclamation. So I'm glad that you're able to join us. Right now, we've got about 15 notaries here in the webinar. All right, let's get started. Everyone here knows who I am. I'll have my contact information up again. I don't pretend to be a know-it-all. Most importantly, I am not an attorney. I am not here to decipher, explain the proclamation. What we cover today, you should not consider it to be legal advice. We are going to review it together. I have made some comments. I will share with you what I plan to do, how I interpret it, but it is going to be up to you to interpret it for yourselves. A little bit of background. Prior to March 26, it was mandatory that Alabama notaries require personal appearance by document signers. This requirement applied to all notaries for all notarial acts. This meant, of course, that both the notary and the document signer had to be in the same room at the same time during the notarization process. About 2 weeks ago, in response to the highly contagious nature of COVID-19 and social distancing ordinances requiring individuals to be at least 6 feet from others, Governor Kay Ivey issued Proclamation Number 4, which stated in part, licensed attorneys could use video conferencing to perform notarizations. It also stated that notaries under the supervision of licensed attorneys could do the same. So this is when I got excited, when I saw video notaries. I was like, yay, they're gonna do something for us. But then when I read the details and saw, nope, it did not pertain to me, and it did not pertain to most of you. But again, initially, Governor Ivey said licensed attorneys and supervised notaries could use video conference equipment to perform notarizations during this state of emergency. That made me unhappy. I continued, and I've continued doing notarizations in person. If you're in the Hangout, you would have seen where I posted a picture. I did Jimmy Rig plexiglass. I meet at my office where there is a 20-foot long table. They're at one end, I'm at the other end. But again, since the video conferencing excluded someone like me, we just had to wait. So we waited a few days, and then last week, Governor Ivey issued Proclamation Number 5, okay? Among other things, Governor Ivey addressed how notaries can be conducted beginning on Friday, April 3rd. So in her proclamation, and you can find a copy of Proclamation Number 5 on a couple places. 3 to be exact. You can go to the notariesforalabama.com website, scroll down where you'll see important documents for notaries. It's one of the several uploaded forms, and you can just click on it, download it. It's a PDF, print it, what have you. It is 8.5 by 14, so change your settings to make sure that that prints for you properly. The other place you can get a copy, if you are a member of the Facebook group, Notaries for Alabama Hangout, Sheila uploaded a copy there in the files section. And then finally, you can just Google Governor K.I.V. Alabama, go to her website, and you want to click on the link for COVID-19, and then look for her proclamation. So when you view it, she has 3 main points. It's really A, B, C, and D, but the meat of it is captured in statements A, B, and C. And I have put them up on the screen for you. I will read it. Notaries appointed in Alabama may notarize signatures through video conferencing programs and confirm the signatures of witnesses who participate virtually through video conferencing as though they were physically present at the signing, provided that they, and I believe they mean the notaries, maintain a recording of the audiovisual communication for a period of 5 years following the date the recording is noted in the notary's logbook. Okay? So read over that. That's the first thing out the box. These are some comments. One, I just want to clarify, video conferencing requires both audio and video abilities. I mention this because initially I was like, oh, I can just use FaceTime. Well, I'll have to check, but it's my understanding FaceTime may not be recorded. I could be wrong. Number 2, Ivy uses the word may, not must. Okay, and so it's not a what do I want to say? You do have it's not mandatory. So that says to me, if I want to continue to do in-person notarizations without breaking the ordinance about social distancing and all, I can. But if I don't want to do that, I have permission, the state's permission to use video conferencing. 3, keep in mind this applies to us performing notarizations as well as witnessing. What do I mean by that? Sometimes there are documents that just need witnessing, and I've been hired to do that, so we can use it for both. 4, the notary is responsible for recording the session. This is going to come up again a little later, but that's something that I was like, okay, this means a little more work. It's not as easy as maybe I thought. And those recordings must be maintained for 5 years. Notice the proclamation also says a separate record or recording of the activity or transaction must be established. And for some reason, Governor Ivey's proclamation calls it a logbook. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that now, but when we get to the end, I'm now thinking that was deliberate. They may not be referring to the journal, but let's continue. But before I move on, any comments or questions from you on Statement A and what Governor Ivey has authorized us to do?
I have a question.
Yes.
What do you think about where it says video conferencing programs?
Mm.
Do you think that means you could use something as simple as FaceTime or Skype or Zoom? Or do you think that might mean some kind of specialized program that has security protocols and such in it?
Good question. I believe, and I strongly believe, that it means we can use FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, whatever, as long as there is audio, visual, and the ability to record the session and record visually and audio. I do not believe they are requiring us to use Signex, DocuServe, Notary Cam, and I'm going to talk more about that because those programs are for remote online notarization. And as you can tell, I think it's the next slide, I firmly believe this proclamation is not instructing Alabama notaries to perform remote online notarizations.
Michelle, I have,
Yes,
so when it says about the video conferencing, it has to be recorded. Does that mean that if you record it, you have to provide that to the client as well?
good question. I hadn't thought of that, and my answer is no. I saw nothing about providing the client with that recording. I interpreted it, Christy, to mean if at a later date, either authorities, the courts, or the document signer at a later date needs proof of the transaction, the notary is expected to provide that recording.
Okay, so it's strictly for legal coverage, for court systems and all that kind of stuff.
Correct. But I
Okay.
do welcome you, Christy, and anyone else, once you review the actual proclamation, if you feel differently, please let me know.
Okay, I
As
agree. I think that's probably, that's sounds like that's what it is.
I sure hope so, Christy.
Also, when you do that, I guess you would be required to tell the client that you will be recorded, or how would that?
Yes, because give me a moment. Well, no, I was just thinking of Alabama's laws concerning recording. I am a licensed private investigator here in Alabama, and so this is part of my training. Alabama is a one-party state, and again, this is not legal advice. And a one-party state means when two people are interacting, talking, all it takes is one individual can record that interaction and does not have to disclose it to the other person. However, if we were a two-party state, then it would take both participants to be aware and acknowledge that the recording is taking place. So really, truly, legally, it's my understanding you wouldn't have to disclose it, but I would. If I do this, I plan on letting them know.
I agree. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. To me, it's a common courtesy. And
Does,
if they're up to no good, I'm sorry, Alan, don't forget what you're going to say. If they're up to no good, I'm hoping that fact will tell them to stop the notarization. Go ahead, Alan.
talking about the one-party state and all that, made me wonder, when we're doing these online notarizations, do both parties have to be in Alabama?
Woo, that came up on Saturday's call, or webinar.
So to
Um,
add on to that question is if we can do notarization for somebody in another state, which seems to me kind of odd if we could, but if you could do that, now does their state's recording laws apply? And I know you're not an attorney.
Gotcha. So I've read this proclamation over and over, and I do encourage everyone to do the same. There's nothing in there that addresses where the document signer or the witnesses have to be located. It just acknowledges they're going to be somewhere where their notary ain't. That being said, it also does not say we should notarize for people outside of Alabama. And so Alan, this is my final answer. Governor Kay Ivey is concerned with the residents of Alabama. Her proclamation pertained to the residents and this section to Alabama notaries. And for that reason, I am going to only notarize folks who are in Alabama. And how am I going to know that? If I choose to do this, because when we get done here, I think some of you, I'm going to take a poll and see how many are going to do it. I'm still on the fence, but if I choose to do it at the beginning of the notarization, while it's being recorded, I'm going to ask the document signer to state for the record what state and county they are in at this time. Because as you know, we need that. Well, now I was about to say we need that for the notary certificate, but for the notary certificate, I am going to put where my feet are planted, but I'm making a note of that. Usually the venue, which is part of the notary certificate, reflects where the notary's feet's planted at the time of the notarization. So yeah, that would be where we're at, not where the document signer is at. I feel good about that answer, but I still want to make a note of it. Good question. Any other question? All right, let's move on. So yeah, this is what I touched on already. All right, so again, I am firmly of the belief Governor Ivey was not approving or authorizing remote online notarization. I feel a need to stress this because while video conferencing notarization sounds like RON, R-O-N, remote online notarization, it's different. So RON still has not been approved. Once that does get approved for us, there are a whole set of additional rules and requirements we must follow. Let me just give you a quick few. Now we need to use a electronic signature or a facsimile of our signature to apply to documents. We also need a special certificate or seal, electronic seal with our name and all. The information that is on our existing notary stamp or embosser. We now need that's produced electronically. That's not what this is saying, and you'll see why. It just come out. I think it's in the next statement. Also with RON, there is a set fee for remote online notarizations. As you probably know, about 23 states voted RON in over the last few years. Most of those states say that their notaries can charge their old-fashioned notary fee plus a one-time $25 RON fee. I don't know where they got that $25 from, but it seems like a lot of states are adopting that. Ivy's proclamation doesn't mention that at all. So try to get out of your, oh, and finally with Ron, I don't want to say must, but most notaries are reaching out to vendors like DocuSign or DocVerify, SignX, NotaryCam to use their platforms that will allow them to notarize online quickly, easily, yada, yada. Okay? And again, there's no mention of that. So as we go forward, all we know is we've got to see the signer through video conferencing equipment. Okay? Come on. Statement B from Governor Ivey. Any person who witnesses a document through video conferencing may be considered an in-person witness, provided that the presence and identity of such witnesses are validated by the notary at the same time of the signing by the same identifications required under current law. I chuckled when I read this because I mumbled to myself, being a notary instructor, there is no law that I'm aware of for notaries that says what type of ID we're supposed to use. But there is a best practice that says government issue ID is the best form of ID. So keep in mind, there are documents out, well, keep in mind this, when Governor Ivey issued this proclamation, I don't think she was just thinking of loan closings. I truly believe she was thinking of primarily the typical notary handling general notary work, okay? And there are documents that I've been presented with that just need witnessing, all right? There's no notary certificate, and I serve as a witness. But then there are also those wills that require notarization and sometimes even witnesses. So this is where she is just saying, yeah, there may be a time when the notary needs to have the document signer in the video conference session, as well as one or more witnesses. And so what I imagine is what we have here today on Zoom. We're up to 23 notaries. And if I wanted to, and if you wanted to, we could all turn on our video cameras and see each other. And so if I wanted to circulate a document to be signed by all of you and I notarize all your signatures, this is where it gets tricky, folks. I could watch each of you sign it on camera. You know, you may have to tilt your camera so that I can see that you're signing it. We'll talk about those logistics later. But that is statement B, and here are my comments on statement B. When witnesses are required, they must be present and play an interactive role in the notarization or signing. The notary must verify everyone's identity by requiring government issue ID or by using personal knowledge. We tried this out Friday night. I asked one of the participants here on the webinar to hold their license up to the camera. And they did it. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't really see clearly that the ID matched the notary. And so someone suggested, you know what, maybe we have them do that and then take a picture of it and either text the pic or email the pic or put it, you know, really close to the camera. I do not believe that this proclamation, again, is asking us to use one of the DocVerify platforms that uses something called KBA, knowledge-based, I think it's authorization, where you have to pay for that, and then it would prompt the signer to answer questions like, what street did you grow up on as a child? What's the make and model of the first car you ever owned? You know, that's wrong. That's part of remote online notarization. And I don't believe that's here now, what we are being asked to do during this state of emergency. Questions and comments from the group on about statement B? Okay. Statement C. The official date and time of the notarization shall be the date and time when the notary witnesses the signature via the video conference technology. That's looks like a word is missing. All documents must be returned to the notary for certification and execution. Before we leave here, I'm gonna pull up, I think I can do it while I'm talking, because that's definitely an error. I don't want to leave out anything important. So I'll come back to that and see what I left out. But here are my comments on C. One, they're letting us know it's important that the notary records and the date and time of the video conference notarization. At the end of the video conference, the signed document, yeah, something's missing, folks, must be returned to the notary so that he or she can use a wet signature. Now that, yeah, that is here in statement C, where the signature via video conference, all documents must be returned to the notary. All right. So again, I get the impression that once the notarization is done, not even once, before it's done, once the signer completes, signs the form, the ID is verified, that document has to be sent to the notary for the notary to stamp it, sign it, crimp it, whatever, and then get it back to the document signer. That was a big aha for me. I believe they want us to apply a wet signature, folks. And how are we going to do that? All right, give me a moment. I pulled up the actual proclamation. I just want to quickly read it because I may have left something out that's important. Here we go. C. Let me go back so you can compare. The official date and time of the notarization shall be the date and time, I'm reading from the actual proclamation now, shall be the date and time when the notary witnesses the signature via the video conference technology. All documents must be returned to the notary for certification and execution. Okay? All right, so now you know what it says. And then my comments are, at the end or towards the end, the signed document must be returned to the notary so that he or she can use a wet signature to sign the document, and in order for the notary to apply his or her official seal stamp. 3, this method of notarization requires several steps and could involve different dates. Yet and still, the date of the notarization will be the date and time of the recorded appointment, video conferencing, okay? Questions and comments about statement C?
Does that mean that we're gonna have to backdate it when we sign our certificate? Like if you notarize, if I witness you do it on Monday, but the papers don't get to me until Tuesday or Wednesday,
Good
then
question.
there you go.
Yeah, but you know what I was thinking, Ellen? If this is Ellen, I'm
It
want
is.
okay. I think I'm going to require. I don't want this to drag out. I'm go- I'm leaning towards having the document signer sign it and then either scan it and email it to me or fax it. Now, granted, their signature wouldn't be wet. They'd have to decide whether wherever this form is going, if their signature has to be wet or not. And then at least I'm notarizing it on the same day. But again, I'm with you. When I read this, I said, yeah, but what if a wet signature by everyone is required? Then they're going to have to overnight it, drop it off somewhere. Yeah, that's a, that's a,
Well,
that's a,
if they overnight the documents, I mean, if they just scan the documents and send them to you, their signature is not wet, but then you apply your wet signature. The only way you're going to get it back to them is via the same method.
exactly, exactly.
So
That,
that's why I assumed that. Uh, didn't it say original something like that?
no,
Can you back
only,
up?
only for the notary. Yeah, I can. And remember, this is incomplete, so let me read it again.
Right. Well, it read word for word. It just looked like there might have been a punctuation behind the word
No,
technology.
I think something, oh, okay, you're right. You're right. All documents must be returned, you're absolutely right, Ellen, to the notary for certification and execution. But yeah, nowhere else did I see, I didn't see the word original mentioned.
Yeah, you're correct. But I guess
And
I'm just assuming that when I see all documents, I'm actually thinking a physical item as opposed to electronic transfer. But
gotcha,
I'm not a
gotcha.
lawyer either.
I know, there's too much wiggle room here. There really is
Yes, ma'am.
room for misinterpretation. Does anyone else have a comment or a question? Hey,
I
Sheila.
do a lot of things. I'm kind of bouncing in and out. I've had a lot of issues to other things that I've been doing. Um, I do a lot of stuff for the housing authority, and they would bring them to the office for me to do. And I even had one call Friday, which I wasn't available at all Friday to do it. And you've got some people that they're going to be limited to access. I had someone try to even bring me a document, and they tried to go to a local office supply store who was not allowing people in to scan, fax, or email a document.
Sheila,
And that's going to be a big issue right there.
you raise a great point. I think we notaries and notary signing agents, a lot of us take our technology for granted. You know, we're so used to scanning, faxing. You think by now everyone's got it, but a lot of people don't. Yes, some folks do have phones where they can take pictures of things and text that to us. But you know, once you start doing that, turning something into a JPEG or whatever, it changes the format, condenses it. It's not as legible. And you're absolutely right, Sheila, especially using the example of the housing authority. If folks need their assistance for housing, there's a good possibility they don't have fax scanner, the ability to print. And I hadn't thought of now FedEx, Kinko's and all, they're not letting folks in there. Wow, good point.
Michelle, you know
Yeah,
they've got online this scanning software that you can use now. It's my daughter downloaded it for me a couple of years ago. It's free to use
Good.
it. You put the document in front of
It
you,
is.
and it
It is, but there's a lot that don't even have that capability.
yeah, that's
That
true.
are either very, that are not even, I don't want to say not literate, not computer literate enough that they would have the capability of doing it, even have they the access to the ability to do it.
Hmm. And then there are some that would, as we know. So yeah, we got to know our audience. And you know what's at the back of my mind is, so how might this work? Not only for general notary work, but for loan signing. You know, I can't even imagine. Once I sat down, I've been playing through my head the steps that it would take. And I'm like I do a lot of Alabama marriage certificates. And those appointments, when folks have their forms filled out, 15 minutes or less. This video conferencing thing, I could see this tacking on another 30 to 60 minutes. And I'm not looking forward to that. All right, so how might this video conferencing work? This is just quick. There's so many steps that I had to stop. But we know from the proclamation, the document signer is going to need to present ID, sign the form that they need notarized, maybe fax, scan it to the notary right then and there. We're going to have to wait a little bit for it to get there, come to us. And the signer may need to send us, the notary, a photo of their ID. Again, if they can hold their card to the camera so that I can clearly see the photograph, great. But someone on a previous webinar said they may want to ask for the signer to text them a copy, and because they want to keep it as part of their record. So number 2, the notary public. We know we've got to verify their identity, administer the verbal ceremony. If it is a jurat, we need to administer that oath. If it's an acknowledgement, if it's already signed, we need to ask them, hey, is this your signature? I see you've already signed it. Is that your signature? For me, the verbal ceremony also includes ascertaining that they know what they signed, they're, sharp, they understand, they're not being forced or coerced. And I do that by just asking them some questions. And then we've got to complete the notary certificate section by hand, I believe, and return the form to them. But again, Alan, now you've got me thinking that maybe the better way, how did you put it? To have them mail it to us, did you say? No,
That's the only way I would see how it could be done.
in
And
that
get
way,
a wet signature.
That was my thought when I actually read it originally, was that they would have to get us the original document, normally by mail, although it could be FedEx or any other service that provides that. We would do the original document, then return the original document back to them.
yeah, I can't believe I'm agreeing with you guys, but that's the only way. And I don't mean that to, be flippant. I just, in my brain, I was fixed on them faxing or scanning, but we all know most companies, financial services and all, they want wet signatures for everybody.
Michelle, may I say something?
Of course you may.
Hey, I'm Deborah. I'm in Etowah County.
Thank you.
I
Deborah.
have took the Pavazio class and the notarize.com class. And the first thing you do is you acknowledge, you ask them. I mean, it shows you step by step if we can get this implemented. I'm on the list and I don't know how far down I am, but you take a 10 question after you watch the video, but it shows the notary and the signer already has the copies in his possession through an email, and so do I, and it's all live. You can even conference in the title or the lender.
Mhm.
It just seems like it's going to be really, really easy,
Okay.
and it took this gal 15 minutes, and it was over with.
Okay, let me ask you this though. How do you apply your notary signature and stamp? Is it wet?
You sign it on the computer.
That's not wet.
Well, what happens is they'll send it back to you. You'll get the full documents to do
That's-
that, and then you send it back to them through
That's
email.
that's not wet though, Deborah. I love what you're saying, because trust me, I've thought about using a platform,
Yeah.
but all of that, that's wrong. That's remote online notarization. And Alabama has not approved that.
Okay.
So even with you doing the training and all, that's fine. I would, for anyone who wants to use the platform, you are going to need to make sure from either the Secretary of State's office, the governor's office, that using an electronic signature and seal, notary seal, is acceptable. You're going to also have to get approved. Well, let me stop there. And I shouldn't say you have to. I trust me, I've thought about possibly using the platform, because you're right. It would be a lot easier and faster. But everything on that document is a facsimile. There is no original signatures from either party. The document signer's signature is electronic or a facsimile, and so is the notary's. And so our goal is to remember, we want to make sure that that document will be accepted wherever that signer presents it. That's really the document signer's problem, to be honest with you. But so tread softly. But I'm with you. It would be a heck of a lot easier, Deborah.
Yes.
A heck of a lot.
Like I said, I'm just learning too. I want to help all I can, but I'm
Eh,
still confused about a lot of things too.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were in the room or the group when we started.
I was, and I couldn't
Okay.
get in.
Oh, sorry.
That's
So
okay.
yeah, at the beginning I stress, and you're not the only one who came in a little later. So I want to say it again. Alabama has not been approved for remote online notarizations. If that's what you thought, I can understand why, but this is the clarification. Governor Ivey said, you no longer have to require the document signer to be in the same room with you, notaries, since COVID-19 is amongst us. During this state of emergency, you guys can be at different locations so that everyone is safe, but we're going to need you notaries to record the transaction using audio and video software. Okay, number 3, anyone who is a third witness, so if there are witnesses present, they've got to show ID to the notary. The witnesses have to be able to see what's going on because they're witnessing the document signer's signature in that whole transaction. The document signer or the notary will have to send that form to the witness to have them sign it and then get it back home to the document signer. And then God forbid if the notary has to now notarize the witness signature. So you guys see this? It's a saga. All right, considerations. The notary must select the video conference program to use. It must be compatible with the document signer's computer and mobile device. So this is kind of getting back to what Sheila said. You know, we can't assume, I use Apple phones and stuff. What if they've got Android? What if what works for them doesn't work for me? We have to record it the way that I'm recording this webinar. And then I've got to save this file. So today, if I had to hang on to a recording of this webinar, I have got to save it on a jump drive or an external hard drive or somewhere on my computer and make sure for 5 years, if I'm asked to produce it, I have to be able to produce it to whatever official asks for it. It talked about a logbook, and maybe Governor Ivey meant our journal. But I imagine we need to, not I imagine, the proclamation says, you know, we've got to record the date and time of the event. And you know, normally we would hand the journal, slide it over across the table to the document signer and get their signature. We can't do that. Okay. There are online notary journal programs out there. I heard about one. Is anyone here use one? I'll find the name of it and post it in the Hangout, but it seemed to be cheap, like $2.50 a month. I meant to write down the name of it, but I'll find it. I mean, so that's a possibility too. Payment of fees. Now, if you're doing a loan signing, you continue to invoice the signing service or title. But what if you're doing general notary work? You need a convenient, secure method to collect your fees. Certification and execution by notary, we already talked about that. I believe that means at minimum, the notary's signature needs to be, and seal needs to be wet or original. Oh, I'm sorry, a couple questions from the group. Thank you. So, hey Melody. So this is going to end the same day notarization for the future. I get several, can you do it today requests. So this is not going to allow for that. You're absolutely right. I think you're right. Now, could this be done the same day? It's possible, as long as everyone's signature doesn't need to be wet. But yeah, I think, and keep in mind, Melanie, I don't think they're talking about loan signings. I don't think Governor Ivey was thinking about refis and buyer and seller packages. But for those of us who do general notary work, most of those calls are for today. And yeah, it surely can't be a rush. Thank you, Sheila. Notary Act, I think that is one of the online journals. I have not checked it out. There are several, but that is one I've heard of that I may check into if I decide to offer video conference notarizations. Because remember, we may do it. We weren't told we had to do it. All right. Remember, we've got to return the executed forms back to the document signer. That means postage, folks, if it gets mailed. So we're going to have to factor that in. Gotcha. How will errors be corrected? Yeah, I mean, there've been times I make mistakes, and I would hope I would have caught the mistake before everyone disappeared, but what if? You know how it is. You tell the document signer, sign your name like this, and they leave out the initial or they put an extra initial in, sign in the wrong place. So this can really be a headache. Technology requirements for video conferencing, folks. Today I am using a paid version of Zoom. I'm being honest with you, I don't know what I'm paying right now. You know, these companies make you set it up so that they take it out of your account or charge your credit card. Um, I chose I think there's still a free version, but I have always found the free version has limitations. If you're going to do this, I encourage you to check around to find the right one for you that you're comfortable with, that will do what is needed. Allow you to record it and save the recording somewhere. So Sheila, you're saying that Zoom has free for 40 minutes or something. Okay, so they do have a free version.
Zoom is 40 minutes free per video time.
All right, whatever that means. See, yeah, I
You
can't.
can do it multiple times. You just have to do them in 40-minute increments. The way we're
Ah,
using it on another group.
okay. You think they let you record? Unsure.
I think they do, but I'm not sure about that because we're
Okay.
doing it on several different groups that I'm involved with.
All right. So
And I haven't
Daryl's.
gone back to look. There is a free conference call that does have a video and you do get recording on it. I couldn't tell
Okay.
you the details because we do the audio free version, not the video free version.
Gotcha. Thank you. So Daryl, that's probably what you're talking about. Zoom has free version for unlimited time if it's one-to-one. And so I use Zoom a lot for training. And I knew that the free version for training wouldn't work for me. So those of you who are thinking about this, find the one that works for you. All right, we talked about how time consuming this could be. Loan signing work, I shudder at the idea of trying to do a refi. Loan mod, no problem. A whole refi, um, not me. And then don't forget witnesses. And if you have to notarize their signatures, there's, you know, that's a whole nother step. All right, don't forget, while you're on this video conference, you still need to determine the signer and the witness's awareness levels, that they're alert, they understand what's going on. We talked about ID. You're going to need to make sure that they produce ID that matches the name on the document. I love using driver's licenses for ID because it gives me a photo, a sample signature, and a physical description. Now with video conferencing, that physical description, other than gender, isn't going to help me too much because I don't know what 5'5" looks like sitting down, you know? And my eyes are dark brown, but on video, they look black. So can't put a lot of emphasis on that.
And you cannot tell whether it's altered or counterfeit.
Good point. Good point, because we're not touching it or real, you know, you're right. You're absolutely right. Again, don't forget to perform that oath ceremony. If it's a jurat, we've got to watch them sign the document. And then we already talked about recording it in the journal. All right, final points. This whole video conference notarization thing is temporary. It's implied in the proclamation. Governor Ivey said she's doing it as part of the COVID-19 state of emergency. Granted, it could be weeks, months, days. It can change. So it's going to be your responsibility to stay on top of this, to know when it's over, then we have to stop doing it. And then we wait for Ron to come on the scene. Again, don't confuse this with remote online notarization. They are different. Think long and hard before spending hundreds of dollars in video conference equipment. There's a lot out there right now, a lot to choose from. Since this is temporary and now you have a better idea what's involved, just make sure you choose wisely. Because there are folks out there who are willing to sell you anything, whether you can use it or not. And then again, stay up to date on any changes. I will continue to post this information in the Facebook group, and Sheila M. Finger does a great job. If I don't see it, Sheila does. But Sheila is our legislative guru for Notaries for Alabama. There is no mention whatsoever that notaries can or should charge the document signer an additional fee for all this. So let me talk about this. We know for general notary work, it's $5 per notarization. This is a lot of work, folks, for us just to collect $5. You decide for yourself if you feel that you can, it just left me, legally charge anything extra. I don't know is my answer. I know we can charge travel fees for as mobile notaries. So maybe we can charge a video conference fee or an administrative fee to try to cover the additional costs to do this. Now, granted, mailing these documents back and forth, that's a no-brainer. The notary can't be expected to pay postage to get this document, notarized document, back to the document signer. But that is something you're going to have to answer for yourself. I am making a list of questions. I will ask my probate judge here in Madison County if he can get an attorney general ruling on this. That I will do. And so if you have any specific questions that you'd like me to add to the list, try to get it to me this week. I'll hold off until a week from Monday to formally ask, hey, these are the questions some of us notaries have. Can you get a ruling on this so that we can, because, you know, I don't want any of us to get in trouble. If you're going to perform general notary work, you'll need to come up with a way to accept payment for your services. I use Square. That accepts cards, and then, you know, I also do Cash App payments, etc. There's PayPal out there too. Although notaries are not required to maintain notary journals in Alabama, this proclamation clearly states the notary must record the transaction in a logbook. Our elected officials in Montgomery and Washington, D.C. are currently discussing remote online notarization legislation. It's coming. So again, there are two things that I know about. I don't have the actual titles in front of me right now, but in Montgomery, there is another House bill or Senate bill for remote online notarization. Then in Washington, D.C., there is a national remote online notarization I'll call it a bill or initiative that's being considered. And so that is why I do believe sooner than later, Ron is coming to Alabama. Okay. And so the question for you to answer for yourself, is this something you want to get into now? I think it's going to be yes for some, no for others. All right. Let me hear from you. What do you think are the pros and cons to Governor Ivey's proclamation? Anybody, everybody. All right, y'all being quiet.
Well, I was going to say, at least it's a step in the right direction, even if we do have a lot of ambiguity.
True. And you're right, it's something, Alan, because last week I was very nervous performing notarizations. I will probably still do some in person. I will maintain the distancing. Again, my office, there is a 20-foot long conference room table. I can put the document signer at one end and me at the other. And yeah, we're still touching the documents, but if we use gloves, I might want to do that if it's quick. But I'm not going to do spend a long amount of time around anybody right now, other than myself. All right. Thank you, Alan. Anyone else with a comment? All right, let's wrap this puppy up. Oh, there is a question. I will only do in person for now. Okay, Gina. I am interested in Ron when the time is right. Gotcha. Yeah, this whole video conference thing is so involved. All right, so.
I do have one question.
Yes.
I didn't know when to throw it in here because it's
little
on subject, but it's not on subject.
This is a good time, Alan.
Okay. The lady earlier, I think it might have been Sheila, that was talking about she was learning how to work with Ron. But my question is when they do Ron and they do all that electronically on their screen and everything, does it get to the point to where the actual paper documents get into anybody's hands?
Yes. They printed, and that was Deborah. And Deborah, if you're still on, if you want to comment. But yes, after everyone, go ahead, Deborah.
Yeah, I'm still here. It still looks complicated to me. I still like in person myself because I got a lot of questions like everybody else. I'm, worried about, hey, who finally gets these and are they correct? And how will I know if they're not correct? Do they get another notary to go to the conference and do it? Yeah, there's a lot of questions still.
Yeah, and so Alan, after everyone applies their electronic signature and the notary applies their electronic seal, both parties will be able to print the signed and notarized document. But again, there's nothing wet about anyone's signature. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. That is a good segue, Alan. On Friday, April the 17th, I am going to do a overview of remote online notarization. This is a free webinar. We're going to look at 4 vendors, 4 companies out there that are selling their remote online notarization programs. Okay. I might swap out. I may not include Notarize in there. I'm working on that presentation now. So, this thing here. But again, Ron is coming And what I want to do is just give you a better understanding of what Ron is, how it would work, a demonstration of it. Because folks, I've been thinking about this seriously for over a year, and I still have questions. Ron, you've got to give, just like Deborah, here it is. She's doing her training now, and kudos to you, Deborah, so that once it is approved, you should be ready to hit the ground running. There's a lot of lead-in time and expenses. So we'll look at each one. We're going to talk about how much money you should expect to have ready for this. And I'm going to encourage you to start saving up now, because it ain't cheap. It ain't cheap at all. All right, so again, you will need to register for that. You did not have to register for this one. The best way to register, the only way I think, is to go to notariesforalabama.com, look for classes, and then register. It will not ask you for any money. Even with the paid version of Zoom, seating is limited. Once the seats are filled, that's it, folks, okay? All right, that's all I had. We're just now good, just a smidge over an hour. I want to thank you for participating. I hope this was helpful. I'll continue to post in the Hangout group about this. If anyone does one, let us know about it. Talk about it. Call me, tell me about it, and I'll talk about it for you. Be wise, be safe, and it is my prayer, my sincere prayer, that we will get through this terrible time as quickly as possible. And I am going to be praying for all of us that we stay healthy, and our loved ones do too. Thank you for supporting Notaries for Alabama, and you guys have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye. Oh, is there a question? Or just, let's see. Yes, thank you.